know we were going to play this, but I'm sure it's come across your desk in the last week or so. Jeremy McGovern was interviewed on Channel 7 last week, and I just did hear, Scully, Steve Gravina's name mentioned a couple of times as Jeremy McGovern was battling to get up for that grand final, and the help that our man Steve Gravina gave him. Let's just play a little bit of that for the listeners now.
Steve Gravina, he's come to me with some funky stuff over the years of different ways of doing things, and he says, have you heard of Wim Hof? I said, no, I haven't. And he sort of showed me. He said, I think we need to try Wim Hof. This is your last chance. And it's just pretty much in your nose, out your mouth. You do 30 big inhales, then you hold your breath. Then you go again, and you do sort of 3 rounds. And as soon as I started to get my chest and diaphragm and everything moving, he started flushing it out. I started feeling heaps better. And so we're doing that all day, every day, and then with massage and different types of movement, pool running and all these types of things to try to get it going. And we were doing that before the parade. And Steve Gravina said, look, we need this next 2 or 3 hours because he's got captain's run, Sabo, and he's not going to be able to do it unless we keep going with this. So it's a $50,000 fine in the club. He goes, yeah, no worries, we'll pay it.
Steve, that was Jeremy McGovern last week, giving you a good shout out of trying to get him ready for the grand final. We heard Jeremy's version of events that happened there and how he was trying to push to play and the tests that you put him through. Can you give us some insight from the physio's point of view as to what was going through your brain as you were trying to get the star defender ready to go for the game?
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't my $50,000 I was putting up, mate.
I'm just going to ask that.
Oh, look, yeah, I mean, he copped a massive hit in that prelim final, and I remember seeing him in the rooms afterwards, and there was a moment, I was with him, and he just turned white, and I was with the doc, and we could tell, it was more than just a corky or a contusion into his side, and he, clearly needed medical attention, and so obviously went to hospital. I went and saw him the next morning in hospital, and, I thought he was closer to having to stay a few more days there, if not the week, then, getting on a plane in a few days and going to a grand final. So the hopes weren't high early in the week. We got to Monday, Tuesday, he came to the club, moving really poorly, and Scully had attested how poorly someone like that used to move post-game, but he was nowhere. And, the docs were trying some medication, which, in retrospect, probably was going to help a few days later, but at the time, Jez was probably not super confident that it was making any improvements, and he got to sort of Tuesday, and we needed to start to show some signs he was going to be able to get moving to then be able to test him at the end of the week. So, we're trying some massage work, hard to really touch him because it was just so sensitive around his abs. So basically, had a huge bleed in that area, no internal organ damage, which was the big thing. That like sometimes you get a big whack and you have a kidney or a liver or a spleen that's damaged. But there was none of that. There was just a big collection of blood, and he couldn't move well at all. And so I'd done a little bit of, self-exploration in the breathwork space in a couple of years earlier, and sort of pitched it to him. So Wim Hof was one of the sort of leading pioneers in that area. That a few of the big wave surfers had done a bit of work in that space, and they had some really good results in helping with their lung capacity, but also helping calm the nervous system down and just helping with a few recovery situations for them. So sort of showed him a couple of little videos of those guys talking about it, which he was open enough to want to have a bit of a go at it. And we just went into a little quiet spot at the club and tried a few little rounds of the breath work. And he felt a little bit better. And so was willing to give it a go for a bit longer, and he felt a lot better after 15, 20 minutes. And so that's from my end. Whether it actually made a huge difference physically, it certainly gave him a hell of a lot of confidence in himself, and then gave him something to be able to control himself a little bit more across the week, because there was so much pressure on him from everyone. So he could sort of go away and sort of lock himself away and go through this breath work regularly, and he was feeling better and better. And so that was maybe just a little clinch that helped him get over the edge. And then we got him through a little jog pretty poorly, but that gave us enough confidence to get him on the plane, and got him up for the rest of it. And then there's a little bit of mail at the back end, I think, from him, but we got him through. Jeffy and I put him through a little fitness test at the end under the G. in the rooms, and yeah, we passed him fit somehow. He played and did it well.
Who made that decision at the end to tick him off, and how much did you actually put him through the ringer to test him out?
I had a crack. So I got him to stand up, face the other way, run backwards, arms overhead at me, and I had a bump bag, and I ran straight at him and tried to, put one through him. But I mean, I'm 80 kilos. He was over 100 at the time, and I put a little bit of load through his back, but he was fine, and he was really surprised that he could do all of that. It was more just the jogging and the feeling of like a balloon sack of blood in his guts that was the pain, and that was the issue. But the fact that he would take some contact, that probably gave him a bit more confidence. And it was more than, okay, well, we saw enough up top that you can move around, and if you can take these big hits, then yeah, you're a chance. Give yourself another 24 hours. See how you recover in the morning. We'll keep going with all the recovery strategies. And yeah, so, Jeppy and I, and then Warren Cothard, the high performance manager, and Simo and Voz, sat down, and I sort of passed on my feedback, and then they made the call.
Was it ever, I mean, this is from a teammate's point of view, just to sort of insert myself. The players, especially the backline, had no real idea how serious it was. And that's usually what happens at a footy club. Someone's injured, someone's a question mark. You kind of leave it for the medical team. I don't even remember speaking to Gov about him not playing. It was just like, well, he'll either play or he won't play, and we couldn't do anything about it. So you kind of focus your area on preparing for the game, and you're like, well, I hope Gov plays. But was it ever close to him not playing? Like I know, in hospital on Monday, and I've got footage on my phone. I remember doing an ice bath, and he was in the pool. You were dragging him around on a rope, basically, like a dog. But was there ever a chance late, like I'm talking Friday or even Saturday, where it was like, well, I'm not going to play?
Oh, 100%. Like on the G, at captain's. I mean, so obviously he spoke about a little bit about we weren't even going to go to the parade because we needed more time to get him up into a position where we could test him at the G. And then that time got taken away from us. So he was really a 50-50 at best going into captain's run, because he hadn't done anything more than a little walk jog at Lathlane before we flew out. And so we really didn't know. We were hoping he'd just get moving and get going again and be able to function, but we hadn't done any speed, any kicking. So there were a lot of unknowns. And so, there were a lot of permutations around if he doesn't get up, who comes in. And the captain's run gave us a little bit more confidence. But even looking at how he moved then and then what he did in the rooms, he can do enough to get through that. But can it stand up, in a grand final? We really didn't know. So it was still a big gamble taking him in. But I think, yes, I didn't see it. I think Simo had a pretty good chat with him as well, and he backed himself in and made the right call. And in those situations, I always did lean on the players a lot, particularly the senior players who you sort of knew and trusted, whether they feel that they can get the job done. And he was confident.
It's really fascinating insight in grand final week to hear both sides of the story from Gov last week and then from you today. But as the physio in charge at the time, when the final siren goes and he's played a big part, and particularly in that last play, what was your feeling? Is it one of relief that he's gotten through and performed well, of satisfaction that you've been able to get him to the line? Like, what was your feeling going through?
It was a relief. I remember watching him the first couple of minutes. I had a pretty close eye on him to make sure he was getting around and getting through. And he was going okay, and he took a mark early in the game, and that gave us everyone a bit of confidence. So there was a bit of relief there. He actually got collected and broke his other ribs in the game. So we were more worried about that really by the end of it. So that was a concern, but he stood up like the great that he is, and played a really meaningful role. So he got through the end of the game, and it was relief, absolute relief that he got through, and the guys got the job done. And I guess from my end and from the medical team end, it's more of a, now that I'm a father, it's more like that proud dad moment where you play a little role in helping nurture those guys and allowing them to achieve what they wanted to do. So it was a good time to be around the club.
Brilliant stuff, mate. Great to chat to you in grand final week, and I thought it was good just to reflect on that, given that Gov spoke about it last week and dropped your name in there a couple of times as really helping him get through that period, mate. Thanks very much, and we'll chat again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for sending that footage over as well, Steve. It was good of you to
No,
drop that
he
on.
did not do that.
I know.
I can guarantee Tom Rockcliffe did, but Steve did not.
Thanks, mate. That
Thanks,
was
mate.
awesome.
Steve Gravina, that was, I thought a really interesting
I
chat
got goosebumps. That's good.
just around that.
Yeah, mate. Like, it speaks to the medical staff, the amount of work they put into the players, and that's why they're there, and that's their role. Players' role is to stand up and to perform and to do all of that. But yeah, to have Steve and his team get Gov up to play in the biggest game, and yeah, it's just interesting reflecting and hearing all that. Honestly, like, I'm not making it up. I still don't really know what went on that week for Gov, and I don't remember ever thinking at training. Well, we were really well coached as well. Daniel Pratt and Adrian Hitmon had a lot to do with us, and they were really big on the mental side of the game. So I'm sure they would have just been like, well, you boys aren't doctors or physios. What are you gonna? You can't do anything for Gov, so get on with it, because you're almost preparing to have him not there. Probably they would have been, no doubt. And if we get him, great. But if not, would have been an interesting who would have come in. Jacko Nelson was an emergency. Oscar Allen was an emergency in that game, so we may have seen Oscar Allen, the backman, with no Jeremy McGovern.
Done a few times.
He got in the best of that game, by the way, Jeremy McGovern.
He did, and obviously part of the famous play. But linking it back, obviously, to this week and grand final week, like, this is the sort of stuff that Brisbane are going through at the moment.
Same.
Geelong are going through with a few things. Like, it's one of their star players, Lachie Neale in particular, not quite as significant or serious injury as what Jeremy McGovern was dealing with, but the fact that he will be wrestling with, okay, can I go out there and perform? Don't want to let the team down. Like, I think that wrestle is really fascinating when it comes to the selection, because the player has to tick it off, the coaching staff have to tick it off, the medical staff have to tick it off, and then even then it still could be a bit like a significant risk to how things unfold on grand final.